Hector woke up in a hospital room, feeling disoriented and confused. His heavy eyelids slowly opened, revealing a sterile and unfamiliar environment. The rhythmic sound of heart monitors echoed through the room, blending with the distant murmur of the hallway. He tried to move, but his body felt too heavy. A middle-aged nurse with a gentle smile approached the bed. "Welcome back, Mr. Hector," she said softly. "You have been in a coma for a few weeks. I'll call the doctor to examine you." While waiting, Hector tried to organize his thoughts. His mind was foggy, as if a dense mist had settled over his memories. He vaguely remembered his name and some basic details about his life, but there were huge gaps in his recent history. The doctor entered the room, a middle-aged man with grey hair and kind eyes behind thin-framed glasses. After a thorough examination and a series of questions, the diagnosis was confirmed. Hector had lost years of his memories due to the trauma of the accident. "It is common in cases like yours," the doctor explained in a calm voice. "Your memory may gradually return over time, but we cannot guarantee that all memories will come back. The important thing now is to focus on your physical recovery." In the days that followed, Hector received visits from his mother, a lady with white hair and a face marked by time and worry. She held his hand, telling him stories from his childhood, trying to fill the gaps in his memory. But for Hector, it was like hearing about a stranger's life. Finally, the day of his discharge arrived. Leaving the hospital should have been a moment of joy, but Hector felt anxious and vulnerable. The world outside seemed like an unfamiliar and frightening place. His mother took him home, a spacious apartment in a quiet neighborhood of the city. The furniture, the photos on the walls, even the smell of the place. Everything was familiar and strange at the same time. Hector spent hours wandering through the rooms, touching objects, hoping that something would awaken his lost memories. Recovery would be long, and Hector still needed constant care. His mother, already elderly, could not take on this responsibility alone. It was then that she decided to hire a home nurse. The first weeks at home were difficult. Hector was frustrated with his condition, annoyed by his dependence on others for simple tasks. His bitterness manifested in sharp comments and bursts of anger. The nurses hired by his mother didn't last more than a few days, unable to handle his difficult temperament. That was when Helena arrived. Unlike the others, she entered the apartment with a firm posture and a determined look. Her brown hair was tied in a simple bun, and her green eyes conveyed a mix of compassion and strength. "Good morning, Mr. Hector," she said, her voice clear and direct. "I am Helena, your new nurse. I hope we can work well together." Hector looked at her with disdain. "Another one for the list," he mumbled. "How long will you last before you run away?" Helena was unfazed by the comment. "That depends more on you than on me," she responded calmly. "I'm here to help you, but I need your cooperation." In the days that followed, Hector tried everything to annoy Helena. He refused to take his medications, was rude during physical therapy sessions, and made sarcastic remarks about her appearance and professionalism. But to his surprise and frustration, Helena remained unshaken. She responded to his provocations with calmness and firmness, never losing her composure. When he refused to cooperate, she would simply fold her arms and wait patiently until he relented. Gradually, almost without realizing it, Hector began to respect Helena's determination. His angry outbursts became less frequent, and he found himself looking forward to her arrival every morning. One day, during an exercise session, Hector had a moment of weakness. "Why don't you give up on me like everyone else?" he asked, his voice betraying a mix of curiosity and vulnerability. Helena looked him in the eyes, her face softening. "Because I believe there's more to you than this anger, Mr. Hector. You're battling something you can't control, and I understand your frustration. But giving up is not an option." Those words touched something deep within Hector. For the first time since the accident, he felt a genuine connection with someone. From that moment on, his attitude began to change. He put more effort into the exercises, followed medical advice without complaint, and even started talking to Helena about topics beyond his medical condition. As the days turned into weeks, Hector found himself increasingly fascinated by Helena. There was something about her that seemed strangely familiar to him, like a distant echo of a lost memory. "I have the feeling that we've met before," he remarked one day, as they walked through the park near the apartment. Helena hesitated for a moment before responding. "It must be because we've spent so much time together over the past few days," she said, looking away. "It's natural for you to feel that way." But Hector couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to that story. At night, in his dreams, glimpses of a forgotten life began to emerge. Confusing images of happy moments, shared laughter, and a feminine presence he couldn't clearly identify. He would wake up from these dreams with a racing heart, trying to hold on to the fragments of memory that seemed to slip through his fingers like sand. During the day, he watched Helena closely, looking for any sign in her that might confirm his suspicions. Time passed, and the relationship between Hector and Helena deepened. He found himself counting the minutes until her arrival in the morning, eager to share his small daily victories or simply enjoy her company. Helena, in turn, seemed torn. Sometimes Hector caught her looking at him with an expression of tenderness and sadness that he couldn't understand. At other times, she seemed distant, as if she was wrestling with her own feelings. It was on a quiet autumn afternoon that everything changed. Hector was sitting on the apartment balcony, watching the golden leaves fall from the trees, when Helena arrived for her daily visit. There was something different in her expression, a mix of determination and sorrow. "Mr. Hector," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "I need to tell you something important." Hector felt his heart race. Could this be the moment when his suspicions would be confirmed? I need to leave," Helena continued, avoiding his gaze. "I received a job offer in another city and decided to accept it. This will be my last week here." The words hit Hector like a punch in the stomach. The idea of losing Helena, the only person he had truly connected with since the accident, was unbearable. In that moment, he realized the depth of his feelings for her. "No, you can't go," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "Helena, I am in love with you." The silence that followed was deafening. Helena stood still, her eyes wide with shock. A solitary tear rolled down her cheek, and before Hector could say anything else, she turned and ran out. That night, Hector couldn't sleep. His mind was filled with confused thoughts and turbulent emotions. When he finally fell into a restless sleep, he was assailed by dreams more vivid than ever before. Images of a forgotten past flooded his mind. He and Helena walking hand in hand on a sunny beach, laughing together at a picnic in the park, exchanging loving glances at a romantic dinner. And then, the clearest scene of all, he and Helena at an altar, exchanging vows of eternal love. Hector woke up with a start, his heart pounding erratically. The realization hit him like a lightning bolt. Helena was not just his nurse, she was his wife, whom he did not remember. The memories came like a flood. He remembered how her hands intertwined with his, how her voice, gentle and comforting, seemed to have the power to dispel any cloud of sadness. The shared laughter, the plans made for the future, the promises that seemed eternal. All of this was etched in his memory, like a film playing endlessly in his mind. But now, there she was, distant, fulfilling her role as a nurse. As if she were just doing a job, as if she were no longer the woman with whom he had shared dreams, sleepless nights, and even the deepest secrets. Doubt consumed him. Why hadn't she revealed that she was his wife? Without caring about the time, Hector rushed to his mother's room. "Mother!" he called, his voice urgent. "Helena! She is my wife, isn't she?" His mother, still sleepy, looked at him with a mix of surprise and sadness. "Oh, Hector," she said softly. "She is your ex-wife. You two divorced almost a year ago." The revelation left Hector stunned. He only remembered the happy moments, and not the reason for the divorce. But as he talked with his mother, fragments of memory began to come together. The single life he led before the accident, the parties, the bars, and the emptiness he felt, even amid all that hustle. Without thinking twice, Hector sent a message to Helena. He needed answers. He needed to understand why she had hidden the truth for so long. He asked his mother where she was staying and if she could take him to her house. Helena thought it was better to meet him at a cafe. When their eyes met, she seemed to freeze, as if caught by surprise. "Why didn't you tell me?" Hector asked, sitting across from her. "Why did you hide that we were married?" Helena lowered her eyes, her hands trembling slightly around the coffee cup. I didn't want to complicate things," she replied with a choked voice. "When your mother called me, begging for help because no other nurse could handle it, I couldn't refuse." She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "And I needed the money. I was planning to move, start a new life far from here, far from the memories." Hector felt a wave of regret wash over him. "What happened to us, Helena? Why did we get divorced?" Helena looked at him, her green eyes shining with unshed tears. "You said you wanted freedom, Hector, that you felt suffocated in married life. You decided you wanted to experience single life again." The words hit him like a slap. Hector remembered the feeling of emptiness that haunted him before the accident, the incessant desire for something he couldn't name. Now he understood. It was Helena that was missing in his life. "I was a fool," he said, his voice laden with emotion. "I threw away the best thing I had in my life for an illusion of freedom." Helena looked at him with a mixture of pain and tenderness. "Hector, you can't blame yourself. You didn't remember. But now I do remember." He interrupted her, taking her hands in his. "And I know that what I feel for you is real. It's not just gratitude for your help during my recovery. It's love, Helena. The same love I felt when we got married. Only now it's stronger, more mature." Helena gently withdrew her hands, her eyes reflecting a whirlwind of emotions. "Hector, it's not that simple. A lot has happened, a lot of pain." "I know," he replied, his voice soft but determined. "And I understand if you need time. But I want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to regain your trust, to prove that I've changed." The weeks that followed were a test of patience and perseverance for Hector. Helena had left as planned, but they kept in regular contact. Every conversation, every exchanged message was an opportunity for Hector to demonstrate his remorse and renewed love. He worked hard on his recovery, not just physically, but emotionally. He sought therapy to deal with the trauma from the accident and to better understand the reasons that led him to abandon his marriage. Gradually, he began to rebuild not only his memories, but also his character. Helena, in turn, used this time to reflect on her own feelings. The pain of the divorce was still fresh, but she couldn't deny that the months taking care of Hector had rekindled feelings she believed were buried. Finally, after 4 months of separation and many frank and emotional conversations, Helena agreed to give their relationship a second chance. She returned to the city, and together, they began to rebuild what they had lost. It was not an easy process. There were moments of doubt, fear, and old wounds resurfacing. But there were also moments of deep connection, shared laughter, and a love that seemed stronger for having been tested and survived. 1 year after the accident that changed their lives, Hector and Helena renewed their wedding vows. It was an intimate ceremony, with only close family and friends. When they exchanged rings, their eyes conveyed not only love but also gratitude for the second chance life had given them. That night, lying side by side in his bed, Hector held Helena's hand and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Helena smiled, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. "Thank you for remembering us," she replied softly. And so, In a tight embrace, they fell asleep, not as two people who had been lost and found each other again, but as two souls who were always meant to be together, overcoming all the adversities that life might present to them. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.